Is that better? Anybody can hear me?
That's
It's
much
better.
better, Carrie.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Again, my name is Levitt, Bussian, and I am the Paleontology Collections Manager at the Natural History Museum of Utah. And I will be sharing with you our earthquake proofing mismatched cabinets. Next slide. So the Natural History Museum of Utah is on the Wasatch Fault, basically, the Wasatch Front, in these beautiful foothills here. And because it is on the Wasatch Fault, seismic mitigation is of utmost importance. But I'm going to be talking about why it's important to earthquake-proof your collections, but it is of utmost importance, you might say great magnitude of importance, to make sure that your cabinets are structurally sound. The reason we moved forward on this was because I opened a full height cabinet that was stacked on top of another full height cabinet, and it almost fell on my head. So that made this very important. So next slide, please. So we received a lot of grants for our cabinets, so most of our collection space has beautiful Delta design full height cabinets and half height cabinets. And you can see here in this aisle on the right hand side, we have the state-of-the-art pallet shelving, which is pretty awesome. But you can see this last aisle, which is our Eocene and Pleistocene aisle, it has a bunch of mismatched cabinets. So Paul, if you can go through those ones really quickly. Yep, so we have white ones, gray ones, full height ones on top of other full height ones, some on carriages, some that are smaller, and some that are on wheels. And you might say that when you have cabinets of different sizes, you don't want to have damage by default. All right, if you want to move next slide, please. So this is what the rest of the collection looks like. Again, those beautiful Delta design cabinets with the half height cabinets above. But I'll tell you how we dealt with the problem aisle. Next slide, please. So we met with structural engineers and our facilities people at the University of Utah, and their solution was to order these metal tubings and cut them to size, because of course the bottom of every cabinet that we had was a different size and it had to be custom cut. And so they would cut the tubings to size, then they would drill holes into the concrete, and then they would put epoxy in those holes, and then put bolts in those holes, and then wait for everything to cure, and then put the cabinet on top, drill holes into the cabinets, and then put the bolts and nuts on there, and ta-da, it was done. Next slide, please. You might say that the collections plan was on shaky ground because nothing went to order. So these are metal tubings, and they were all cut the wrong lengths. Next one. You might say that there was faulty logic involved because the structural engineer had very confusing instructions to the actual installers, resulting in, next one, the bolts all being cut 3 inches too short. So they all had to be taken back and cut and then brought back. Next one. They were installed a little bit off kilter, which doesn't look very nice. The next one. When the concrete didn't actually match up to the bottom of the cabinets, their solution was to slide the washers underneath to fill the gap, which of course in a real seismic activity, it would just shake out. Next one. And you know the whole adage, measure twice, cut once. They didn't. They were off by 1 inch for this the last one they put in, which meant that they had to drill holes into the metal tubing and kind of shift the cabinet into place. So that wasn't great. Next one. So nothing really went as planned, but I'm really glad that we did this. And if I were to recommend to you at your institution to do this, here's how I'd recommend it. I would recommend you would have a committee of the appropriate museum professionals all get together and determine where you are now, where you want to go. Then get the installers, the facilities installers involved, figure out what their problem-solving solutions would be. then get the structural engineer involved and figure out what their problem solving solutions would be and the cost, and then regroup with the museum professionals in the committee and figure out if that's what you want to do moving forward, if you want to, you know, if you have a actual cost now, if that's how you want to move forward using these mismatched cabinets. If we were to do it again, we'd probably buy all brand new cabinets. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the end result. We have the different mismatched cabinets correctly bolted to the floor. We have some half heights up there, some full heights on top of full heights, but this time they're bolted down, which is great. And on the right-hand side, you can see we have these smaller cabinets that used to be on wheels. They removed the wheels, stacked them on top of each other, bolted the bottom ones to the ground, and stacked them and bolted them all together. I'm really glad that we did this because, next slide, please. 3 months later, we had a 5.7 magnitude earthquake hit Salt Lake City, and 2,000 aftershocks after that. And I am convinced, had we not done this, the cabinets would have fallen down. I was lucky enough to come back into the museum this past Monday, and all the cabinets were in place and no fossils were harmed. So that was great. So thank you so much for listening.
Carrie, there were a series of questions for you posted by participants. One was, what scale earthquake were the cabinets fitted for?
Yeah, so I was trying to answer some questions in the Q&A down there, but okay. I don't know if they're rated for anything in particular, but it survived a 5.7. So I'm sure if you go to Delta Designs, they might be able to tell that. That being said, the half-height cabinets that are mounted on the full-height cabinets, they're attached to one another by screws and bolts, which of course then the envelope seal is gone. With that, their solution was to caulk the holes, which is better than nothing, I guess. But yeah, I'm not sure about the specs on that.
Okay. And the person, did you collaborate with other museums that have this risk? It was a longer question in the chat, but that's the gist of it.
No, not at the time, because it was kind of quick movement. As much as I wish it would have been more rapid, it was, this cabinet almost fell on Carrie. We should get money to do this. We should do this now. And so I didn't reach out to any other museums to see what they had done. When our building had been built, we did do some stuff to the actual building. Like there's gaps, you know, in between where you walk that have a different metal piece on it. So if the museum shifted a little bit, it would account for that shifting. But in terms of the collection spaces, it was again just that one aisle that had been neglected.
Okay. And someone asked if you sued them, and you don't have to answer that. The answer is probably no, because you're a university. Let's see. Okay, there was, did you install some kinds of straps for oversized shelving to prevent the cradles from walking off during an earthquake?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm going to elaborate a little bit in that one of the possible solutions for the cabinets in the beginning was thought to put straps on them and attach them to the wall or attach them to the floor or even attach them up in the I-beams and the ceiling. But they again went forward with the drilling the holes and putting the bolts down method. In terms of the open shelving, the oversized collection, our archival jackets, we made them with feet on them, and that actually made them really, really stable. And so when I came in on Monday to see what might have broken, nothing had moved. In oversized, nothing had shifted, which was great. So I think having those feet was a good idea, and the way that we've not really stacked things on top of each other in oversized, they're all just on a pallet with their own surface area. I think that helped out. Nothing walked off their pallets.
And I have a question for you. Did you call in any engineers from your university to evaluate?
Yep, we had one structural engineer on the project.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you. That's incredible that you came up with a solution in a bad situation, which is part of what Stash is for. So I think we can post this somehow.
And it was put to the test with earthquake.
That's right. There are another couple questions for Carrie. I don't know if she answered them. One was if you tried an epoxy seal, and the other was, did you attach rubber shock absorbers to the mounting of the cabinets?
No rubber shock absorbers were attached, just metal washers. And yeah, I think the epoxy thing is a great idea. I think it's one of those things that I'm going to have to go back and do that myself.
Okay.
But I'm good at using epoxy, so maybe I'll do that.
Okay.